So it was one of the games that I was most looking forward to in 2024, and I'm happy to report that the Plucky Squire does not disappoint. This is a wonderful idea where the whole conceit is you play a storybook character named Jot, who is the Plucky Squire, and he's got a couple of pals that you can also play as throughout this experience. One of them is Violet, who is this little magic user, and she's got this colorful way of using her magic wand/brush. You also are partnered up with a character named Thrash, who is this heavy metal troll, and he is big on drum attacks. And they are encouraged by this old wise wizard named Moonbeard, who you meet up with from time to time, but he has also scattered all of these little radio gadgets throughout the world in both 2D and 3D in this game, where you can walk up and he'll give you some advice. A little bit like a clever tongue-in-cheek take on all of the signposts that you would run into in Super Mario 64. Just enough kind of advice to point you in the direction, but you still have to figure things out. And the whole idea behind this game is that you play it in 2D. It's a two-dimensional storybook. You are going from page to page, and you are helping to write the story. You are battling this evil bad guy named Humgrump, and he is attacking towns and making people's lives miserable. So you got to stop him and all of his goons. There are soldiers that you'll have to defeat, and then there are all, pesky mice and other critters, little flowers and things that will come to life. All of these magic-infused little enemies that will come and attack you. And the story crosses through all kinds of different genres and time periods. It's very elaborate, it's very big, and you're also helping to embellish it and write it, and playing with the words in 2D actually is a big part of the experience as well. You'll get little sections of storybook text where something is described on a page. It might be about daylight or nighttime. It might be about a metal obstruction or a battery or something like that, and what you can do is walk up to the words and you can slash at them, and then you can manipulate them. You can take a word out and replace it with a different word, and it affects the environment and the puzzles and the objects within that world, and you're able to progress into the adventure. You've solved the puzzle and you're able to continue on. But in addition to this, and this is the big part of this game, is you can pop off the page and you can run around the little kid's desk that is the owner of this storybook in full 3D and look under rulers and other objects, erasers and things like that, and you'll find lots of little collectibles, lots of little light bulb icons, which are the currency in the game, which you can exchange for more powerful slash attacks with your sword. And you can also find these stamps outside in 3D, which will affect the 2D storybook. So you stamp on the book and you can add bombs into the world, or you can stamp on the book and stop some kind of spinning object or something like that that will harm you, but you can just use that stop time stamp and then you can go back into 2D and you can get past it, which is really cool. So there's a lot of trying to figure out when do you pop out of the book and how do you manipulate the book, because you can turn the pages and that sets you back into different parts of the adventure so far. You can also tilt the book and roll items from one page to another. There are so many intricate mechanics that you have to grapple with as you're figuring out the adventure, and it's not especially difficult. The game does a pretty good job at sort of leading you from sequence to sequence, but it is a lot to kind of contend with, to wrap your mind with, because sometimes you'll be in 3D, but you forget you're in 3D because you're running over the pages of the book and you're slashing at things, but then you have to think, oh yes, I have to find the little jump portal to go back into 2D. I need to do that, but I also have to hop back out into 3D to solve this particular moment. And so there's a lot of that dimension twisting thought process in your mind. And because of that, the game has to kind of figure out the speed with you, and it does slow it down a little bit. It's not just this seamless kind of immersion bouncing back and forth. You kind of have to figure this out, stop your progress a little bit. So it doesn't play exactly like a fast-paced Zelda experience where you're solving out, the puzzles and fighting bad guys and beating bosses. There are elements of all of that, but because you have to kind of stop and think and find the portals to jump out, go and find the thing you need to figure out in 3D, work with that, pop it back into 2D. So, it's a little bit of a stop-start experience. And I was certainly thinking of a team with the scale and resources of something like a Nintendo first party out of Japan could do with this game design. And we saw echoes of something like this with The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds, where you were popping up into the walls and stuff, and there was a 2D and 3D kind of element. But this takes it in a grander direction, and you really do have the sense that you can run around inside the bedroom of this kid. Well, it's mostly just the desktop, and that escalates into stuff around the desk. I did feel the compulsion to kind of keep exploring in 3D, and it sort of hems you in, but I think that's more of a reflection of the scope and scale of the game and the scope and scale of the team's abilities and the budget and stuff. There is certainly enough elements in this game where you think, oh wow, okay, well this could lead to really cool sequels and really cool growth with this, because it's so freaking clever, and it is so well made as well. For a company that isn't Nintendo, I think these developers, the leads on this game, have come from a lot of indie stuff in the past, and it just feels really grand, and also a really smart pickup from Devolver, who we all know are just supreme curators. They really understand excellent work, and they get behind so many cool ideas in the video game space, and this is one of those games. It's so fulfilling to be able to bop out into 3D and figure things out, and also there are all of these incredible homages to classics in there, lots of 8 and 16-bit stuff. You'll see a little Punch-Out in there, you'll see some Japanese role-playing game, tips of the hat, you'll see some rhythm game stuff in there, you'll see just this great sort of collection of ideas. The game is really adept at surprising you and giving you a new slant on things, just like the core conceit of being able to bounce out into 3D and manipulate the book and flip pages and all that stuff. The game itself also says, well, let's look at this from this perspective. And I love that. I love the intelligence of it. Even though the game is not especially difficult, it doesn't ever become super challenging beating up on the bad guys. And if you do fall, the autosaves and the checkpoint systems along the way do a pretty good job of just getting you right back into the action. I was just blown away by the artfulness, because it's gorgeous. I thought the music compositions in this game was fantastic, and there's a great variety in that as well. There's a lot of symphonic orchestral stuff, and there's some techno material in there, a little thrash stuff in there as well. It's really ambitious and just so freaking smart. And that's what I take away from this. It's also one of those games that I think is going to grow in estimation over time, and I think it's one of those titles that is going to be really replayable. Honestly, I hope it's a huge hit, and I hope that this company, if they want to make more in this world, I hope they are given the chance to. And I was also blown away by some of the late game design choices. And I think fans of Zelda type experiences out there, just people that really dig this idea of jumping from 2D to 3D, are going to be nicely surprised by the Plucky Squire. I am a little bit torn, because I think this game exists in that sort of space between a 9 and an 8.5, but we don't do 8.75. So I'm going to give it an 8.5, but I think this is one of those games that I'm going to love more and more as time goes on. The Plucky Squire is super special. Don't miss it.